My man, Chris Paul, Huggy Lowdown, sent me a video last night tied to the election of Herschel Walker. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and show it. This is quite funny, y'all. Check out Chris Paul and Huggy Lowdown. Watch.
On the first day of Christmas, Herschel made us see his IQ is -3. On the second day of Christmas, Herschel made us see 2 abortions and his IQ is -3. On the third day of Christmas, Herschel Walker made us see 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the fourth day of Christmas, Herschel made us see 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the fifth day of Christmas, Herschel made us see 5 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the sixth day of Christmas, Herschel made us see 6 years in high school, 5 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the seventh day of Christmas, Herschel made us see 7 days of shucking, 6 years in high school, 5 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the 8th day of Christmas, Herschel made us see concussion, 7 days of shucking, 6 years in high school, 5-0 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the 9th day of Christmas, Herschel made a scene. 9 pants on fire, 8 known concussion, 7 days of shucking, 6 years in high school, 5-0 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the 10th day of Christmas, Herschel made a scene. 10'10", he's lying, 9 pants on fire, 8 known concussion, 7 days of shucking, 6 years in high school, 5-0 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the 11th day of Christmas, Herschel made a scene. $11 haircut, 10'10", he's lying, 9 pants on fire, 8 no concussion, 7 days of shucking, 6 years in high school, 5-0 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3. On the 12th day of Christmas, Herschel made a scene. 12 months on Trump's nuts, $11 haircut, 10'10", he's lying, 9 pants on fire, 8 no concussion, 7 days of shucking, 6 years in high school, 5-0 impersonating. 4 kids ignored, 3 death threats, 2 abortions, and his IQ is -3.
Y'all got some fool on our YouTube channel talking about, I don't understand this. Are we just mean people? Dude, take a damn joke. Rebecca, I saw your eyes get wide when you first played the video. You were like, I cannot believe he is playing this.
It wasn't that. I was just trying to figure out what each of the things were going to be. And I was just like, oh no. That was trying not to hyperventilate. I didn't want to do that live on air. But yeah, can you send me the video? Because I got a lot of people to pass it around.
Yes, I will send you the video. And I will play it again at the end of the show. Let me thank Chris Paul and Huggy Lowdown, J. Anthony Brown for sending that to me as well.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
A viral video has gone all across the country showing a Winston-Salem State University student. This story is absolutely crazy, folks. This student who was arrested in an altercation with a white professor, okay? So check this out. It's a TikTok video. It shows 20-year-old Leila Hamoud getting arrested by University police officer Michael Rao. Watch this.
I'm not resisting. You're hurting me really bad, bro. Please get off of me. Is she still standing there letting this happen? Like, exactly. I hate you. It already hate you. I swear to God, I hate you. I swear to God, I hate you. I swear to God, I hate you, bro. You're the worst teacher ever. You get me taken out of here because I want to apologize? Because I want to apologize? You started yelling at me. You tried to embarrass me about my paper. You're a terrible teacher. Is somebody recording this?
Oh, everybody is.
I hope you're recording
Everybody
because that's ridiculous.
Yes, that really is.
To let this shit happen. She sit here and say she loves black people and stuff, but you let this happen to her? Come on,
No, you yelled at her first. You yelled at her first, but you want her to apologize. It doesn't make any sense.
You hear everybody in the class say, look at my grades, my GPA, I graduated by 8 points. I'm not no dumb bitch. I'm not stupid, Dr. V. The whole class.
I'm so mad.
If anybody is better than Victorian, bitch, what the hell?
Yeah, you were yelling at her. You were yelling at her. That's ridiculous.
That's BS.
I'm saying.
BS.
I'm like.
I'm trying to say I'm sorry.
That's.
You're the worst teacher I've ever had.
Leila posted this video to explain exactly what happened in the classroom.
Distracting. So basically, we had a group project assigned as a final, which is probably the dumbest thing, but I'm not here to critique her on her learning. We had a group final. We had to write a paper, and we had to also make up a skit for our group to present. It was 7 of us. I did most of writing the skit just because I wanted to. It was easy and it was fun for me. Well, I thought it was easy. I did the essay as well. She got back to me late, 6 hours before we had to present, actually, saying that my essay was completely wrong and I should revise it, all this shit. And I'm just like, I'm not going back and redoing this essay. That took me 2 weeks and you told me 6 hours before. I'm not redoing it. And I think I'm pretty okay for that. They don't want camera dirty. I think that wasn't a bad idea of not redoing it. I didn't feel any type of way, and I still came to the final to present with my group because that was what we were supposed to do. I did not say anything when I did come into the class because, like I said, I was already frustrated at the fact that she told me my whole essay was wrong. So I come into class and didn't say anything to her. She's talking. She's assigned us to our groups, and we're going to talk about what we're doing for the project before we actually have to do it. So I'm talking to my group members and come present it. So we talked about that, and she was like, well, it is wrong and you should redo it because it's going to greatly impact your grade. Once again, said I did not care about that because I'm only here to present with my group so that my group does not get a 0 on this. Well, I got hella views, so look at my story. So, boom, she starts getting loud. She starts yelling at me, telling me this is her class, so it doesn't matter what I think. I'm getting loud back. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I got loud back. I was raising my voice too. I'm like, Dr. V, like, you're yelling at me. I'm not going to redo it. I'm here to present with my group. Like, I'm here to get this done and get out. And she's like, you need to get out. Like, I want you to leave. And I'm like, leave? No, like, I'm here for my group project. Turn the comments off. How do I do that? And she told me to get out of the classroom, and I literally refused. I was like, I'm not going to leave. This is our final exam, and I didn't do anything wrong other than responding to what you said to me because I did not say anything to her. She's telling me to get out of the class. I'm like, no, I'm not going to. She's upset at this point. She leaves, and she's talking to another teacher in the hallway. At that point, I guess, is when they decided to call the police, campus police. Campus police comes, and it is a black officer at first. I'm not usually one to mention race. But I think it is a little bit necessary in this instance because I do go to a historically black college, and for this to happen to me and be so provoked by people who are not of black descent, it hurts. So I feel like I do have to mention that. The black officer comes in, he asks me what's going on. I tell him everything. The class is telling him everything. As I'm telling my story, my professor comes back in. Yes, officer, I want her taken out. I'm like, whoa. He's like, whoa, I'm talking to her, I'm listening to her, so wait. We're talking, another officer comes in, and he is a white officer. He comes in, and he's like, okay, so your options are you're gonna get out of the class, or I'm gonna have to take you out. I'm like, what? Like, take me out? Take me out how? So, yeah, like they said, it is important because the black officer, he's a very well-known officer on our campus. He's never given anybody any problems. He's actually pretty cool, and he was doing his best to not arrest me. He was trying to have a conversation, and the white officer came in and was like, yeah, you're either gonna get out or I'm gonna have to get you out. And I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm like, Dr. V, you're gonna let them arrest me? And she's like, yes, Dr. V, Dr. Villagomez, Cynthia Villagomez. Yes, say that name in here so y'all know who we're emailing about because I'm sending emails, my class is sending emails, friends are sending emails, send an email. If not, that's okay too. I'm not pressuring you. So the white officer comes in, he says that, I said that to Dr. V, and she's like, wait, hold on. She's trying to, like, fix herself. She's like, okay, either apologize or you need to leave. I said apologize. Now, the old me, I'm sure I would have apologized, but at that moment, I knew that I was not the one in the wrong. I didn't start the situation. I didn't escalate the situation. I knew I was not wrong. So I'm just like, okay, apologize for what? Apologize because you yelled at me and you dropped the F-bomb? Yes, I did drop the F-bomb and told you I'm not fucking stupid. That's what I told you. So I'm sorry. The F-bomb hurt your feelings. So sorry, baby. We're grown. If that was worth an arrest, let me know. Let me know. According to my mom, it wasn't. But continuing, I said, Dr. V, are you going to apologize to me? I came in, I sat with my group, I didn't say anything to you. You decided to start yelling at me as soon as the fire alarm went off about my essay. So she was like, no, I'm not going to apologize. I'm like, what? So then I'm like, wait, well, tell me what I'm apologizing for. Tell me what I'm apologizing for. At that moment, I'm talking to the black officer. I'm talking to my professor. The white officer is like, yeah, go ahead and take her. You have to go get her. To the black officer. So the black officer is like, okay, turn around. I'm about to put these handcuffs on you.
All right, folks, Winston-Salem State released a statement. Here is what they said. We received a report that there was a significant commotion in Carolina Hall this morning. And as such, a WSSU employee nearby called for the assistance of law enforcement after they tried to de-escalate the situation. We understand that the weaponization of police is a prevalent problem in our community. However, that is not what happened in this incident. We strive for a safe, inclusive, thriving, and intellectual community where all our faculty, staff, and students feel respected and supported. To that end, we will take swift and appropriate measures against any situation that contradicts those ideals. Now, here's the deal. When you look at this Rate My Professor, this professor does not get good ratings. She gets a 2.5 out of 5 when of course, being evaluated from students. I want to go to you, Erica, because when we're talking about cases like this, I mean, this is, I can't imagine. Look, I've been in classrooms where there have been debates back and forth with teachers, with professors, and nobody called the cops.
Right.
And I'm sorry. I don't care First of all, I'm trying to understand, why would a staffer in another classroom who's not in the classroom, even if you hear yelling, how do you say, oh, let's call the cops? To me, this is just me, if I'm an adult and I hear yelling, I'm going to go visit the classroom to see if I can help de-escalate, not call the cops.
Right. Exactly. But see, we have the presence of Karens on HBCU, so the story is a little different. I think what was very interesting about that statement that was issued, you know, the top and the bottom, and then you have this one line about the weaponization of police, and then the very firm, but this was not the case. I'm really glad that Leila's mother is there to support her, because I'm going to assume that she is the one, you know, her family's the one that takes care of her tuition. And just thinking back to 2017, at the beginning of the Son of a Klansman's administration, where we saw the numbers of students that were enrolling to HBCUs, my son at Morehouse was, you know, he was no different from those numbers of kids. And so just thinking about that, kids were actually enrolling in HBCUs because of the real intense racism, everything that came with the Son of Klansman's regime, all of that they were feeling, very young students, and said that they wanted a place of safe haven, protection, in academia. And that's what it brought to them. So what I love is really the stand that Leila has, that she has already started shooting off emails. She got email city rock and rolling. She has the support of her classmates. She has the support of her friends. She has the support of her family. And I think that when you have a person that really understands where they're coming from, that gives that institution a lot more to deal with. So really kudos to Leila, and really shame on this institution for the way that they have, what it seems like really has backed up someone who, if they would have done a cursory search, what you did, Roland, would have seen that she's been problematic for quite some time. But I'll stop here because Reese did an eloquent summary on this earlier, that I would encourage everyone to go to Black and Women Views Media, Instagram, Twitter, to just listen to what the response was to this situation.
But before I go to Reese, I want to go to Larry. Larry, you're a professor. Based upon what you see here and what you've heard described, how do you handle that situation?
So, Roland, you know, I'm looking at this from a number of perspectives. I'm an HBCU alum. My son is also currently enrolled in HBCU. And as you mentioned, I'm a college professor. So sometimes you have conversations with students, debates in class. And, you know, this is what higher ed is. You engage in, you know, passionate discussions. But this is really a failure. This is a failure by the professor. And I watched the young lady's, you know, her entire Instagram, and in terms of her video, in terms of her describing everything that happened from beginning to end. And as an instructor, first of all, and we even know this, we're not just predominantly white institutions, but HBCUs, that, and you saw this in this situation, that law enforcement can be deployed and also be responsible for creating more trauma for Black students. You should never call law enforcement unless we're talking about violence in terms of my using a weapon or a knife or some other situation. I would have never called law enforcement. I've never gotten to the point where I had to call law enforcement for a student. I currently teach at a predominantly white institution. I've also taught at HBCU. I have never engaged in it and gotten things that got that heated or what I felt like it was dangerous and my life was in the line. This professor didn't take the necessary steps in terms of whatever feedback she was giving her on her paper, in terms of a realistic timeline to say she needed to rewrite the paper. That was also a misstep. And then engaging in that student in class. Now, if she decided to engage her, should engage her after class and had a conversation, showed a level of respect, because you heard the young lady say she felt like she was being disrespected. It is also a failure on law enforcement. Once again, the white police officer comes in after the Black police officer having a conversation and then instructs her to take this young lady outside the classroom and arrest her. That is uncalled for. And then lastly, Roland, it is a failure by the president and other administrative leaders to put that statement out. And they put out another statement before that. But the bottom line is, overall, for people thinking this professor should be fired, I will remind them that she is tenured and that it is difficult to fire tenured professors. I've seen it in my institution. I've seen it in other institutions. But overall, this is a failure in terms of leadership in the institution. This is an absolute failure by the professor to call police on a young sister who attended an HBCU because they are supposed to be safe spaces. And then lastly, we can't allow this to happen. And I hope that the professor faces repercussions.
So, control room, do y'all have the video from Tennessee State? Okay. So y'all remember, it was just a couple of weeks ago. This happened at HBCU Tennessee State.
I said, what is your name? Out, get out. You're a failed this course, whatever your name is. Out! 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 Out!
That white teacher was yelling in the face of a black student. That video went viral. That teacher knew what was coming down, Reese. He quit the next day. What do you have to say?
Well, I want to be clear about a couple of things. Number one, this is not simply a case of the police removing Layla from the classroom. She was handcuffed, aggressively manhandled. The weight of this police officer was put on a 5'2" petite young lady. She doesn't look so petite in that video because she has a big sweater on, but she showed that she's a skinny little, short thing. She was handcuffed for hours. She was transported to a jail and charged before a judge with 2 misdemeanors. I know that people don't like mouthy black girls. I know that people don't like black girls getting out of turn, getting, not showing deference to people. But you cannot tell me that it is a proportionate response to getting mouthy with the teacher who started the interaction being a little aggressive. You cannot tell me 2 misdemeanor charges are appropriate for that situation. If you think that there's something wrong with you, and I'm surprised you're even watching this program to begin with.
Right.
I think we all could concede that perhaps she could have just left the room, but she was not given that chance by the police officers before he handcuffed her. As far as she understands, she's having a conversation, as she's probably had many times with a professor, as you should be allowed to have in an environment that's supposed to be safe and inclusive for intelligent, bright, young Black people. She was valedictorian, and we want our HBCUs to recruit the best and the brightest. So the kind of conversation that she was having at that moment did not warrant being handcuffed. And I've been in a situation because I've had a conversation, I've been in conversation in front of a white police officer where arbitrarily he decided that he was going to handcuff me and haul my black ass out. And I was in stiletto high heels, dressed up, got my boots out. I was looking good. I was in Vegas. And he decided, okay, I'm done with this black bitch. She got to go. She got to get arrested. Now I acted a plumb fool and I didn't get arrested. But I was still handcuffed. My arms were sore the next day. I was like, why are my arms sore? What happened? Then I remember, okay, this cop was manhandling me. So I know how arbitrary these situations can be where a cop just decides in the middle of a conversation, I'm just going to fuck with this girl because she's a Black woman and I can. So I just want that to be clear. This wasn't a situation where she was simply removed out of the classroom. Perhaps she should have just left the classroom, but she didn't. And just because you don't act in exact accordance with how you're expected to act does not give anybody license to escalate it and disproportionately respond to the point to where she, as a bright young student, is facing 2 misdemeanor charges. And then one other thing I will say is not only did this teacher abuse her power and weaponize the police. It's absurd for this school and this institution to say that the police weren't weaponized in this situation. But not only did she do that, not only did she injure the student, but she injured the classroom. Because I've seen other footage, and I'm telling you, them students was dragging her ass for filth, as they should. And in those videos, I will say this, and this is not a credit to her. She sounded like, okay, I didn't mean it to go that far. Okay, Well, professor, if you didn't mean it to go that far, then you should be the first one demanding that charges against this young lady are dropped. And you should be the first one to apologize to that person. And if you're raising a mouthy Black girl, an intelligent, bold Black girl, I hope that you don't look at something like this and say, always back down. I hope that you tell them, stand your ground. And I'm not saying you tell them to be disrespectful, but there's nothing that should have prevented her from continuing on with the conversation before it was escalated by the cops upon the watch of the teacher to the point to where she's facing 2 misdemeanor charges. That is ridiculous. That is abuse of power. That is weaponizing the police. And that is something that prospective students are going to have to think about when considering that, or when they decide, if people want to decide to re-enroll to the next year. This is egregious. It's disgusting. And I'm sick of people thinking that they can treat young Black women, and if this was a young Black man, I would say the exact same damn thing any old kind of way. And for this to happen in an HBCU,
and that is what I think. What bothers me here is a classroom discussion argument. And look, I've had my fair share of debates and back and forth with college professors. But that should not lead. That shouldn't lead to police charge. In fact, the DA should come out right now and say, we ain't pursuing this crap.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Roland, can I add one other thing I think is really important? And my colleagues, the points they make is very important. Lastly, I think the point is really important in terms of, it was a Harvard study that came out a few years ago to found Black folks, when they come in contact with law enforcement, are 2 to 3 times more likely to be killed. Like we've just talked about that. So just that interaction dramatically increased the likelihood that she could end up dead. And I think that's really important in terms of, and I talked about what does it mean to be Black and free in America, and particularly at HBCU, that she put her life in danger dramatically by even calling the cops in that interaction. So that's a really important point I think we also should keep in mind.
Look, it is just, this is the crap that we have to deal with all the time. And here's the other piece. If you were a college professor, and again, I remember, again, I was at Texas A&M, and this professor really got upset because I disagreed with her opinion. She was yelling and screaming, and I literally said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were God." And I made it clear, I am going to disagree with you. These things happen. The job of the professor, and this is the key, the person who is the one who should be de-escalating is the professor. And second of all, what you don't do is demand someone apologize. What you say is, young lady, you and I can have this conversation after class. I have office hours, but I'm going to be moving forward with the rest of the class. There's a way for you to do it. If you're going to tell a student to redo an assignment, you don't do it in front of the other students.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? Folks don't show out.
And can I just add?
I'm just saying.
Edit it out of the video.
Hold on. One second. After this point here. And if the student continues to be unruly, if the student is yelling and screaming, the professor should say, let me know when you're done. And what you do, you don't heighten tensions. You sit there and let them show their ass, and you sit there and say, are you now done? And then you say, either take your seat or you're more than welcome to lead today's class. I'm going back to work. You don't, and here's the last point.
Exactly what I said.
If the professor was not the one who called the cops, when the cops show up, gentlemen, I have this under control. I don't need your assistance on this. That is how you handle it. Reese, go ahead. And that would be the video that's also made available. Go ahead.
And I just wanted to point out one more thing too. The way that the exchange started was there was a fire alarm that was going off, and the young lady was on the way, out because there was a fire alarm going off when the teacher started the confrontation. So it wasn't like she was in the back of the room and they were yelling at each other or anything like that. I mean, it was because of the fire alarm going off that she was even having any kind of passing by the teacher or anything. So I know some people probably just think that she was just out there acting a plumb fool and starting stuff with the teacher, but that is not at all what happened.
Again, this is a perfect example where we talk about when cops don't de-escalate. If you're dealing with young people, even college students, you're the grown-up. You're the one who should be in control of the situation. And what you do is recognize, I'm not going to allow this thing just to continue and just go on and on and on. And Winston-Salem State, I've been to that campus. I've spoken on that particular campus. The university administration, they should be calling for these charges to be dismissed. This is not how you handle academic disagreements between a student and the professor. You do not bring in the criminal justice system. This is an academic situation. You handle this internally. You do not go to the criminal justice system. I do not care. All right, folks, back to our Roland my unfiltered video in just one moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob stormed the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
There's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I was really cracking up last night. I'm gonna play this here. I want you to respond just to see, because Fox News is about to go ham on black people and young voters because that fool Herschel lost. Listen to Laura Ingraham, who was raised by a Nazi sympathizer, whine and shed these red MAGA tears.
Guys, we appreciate it. Bill, stay with us. All right, we have more. All right, we're not going to more. We got to go to Molly Hemingway. Sorry, I have a whole script in front of me. Molly Hemingway and, of course, Kellyanne Conway. Molly, you and I talked about this about a week ago. We felt this coming. To me, it never felt like the Senate Republicans wanted this guy in office. He was a Trump pick. They didn't like that. They probably like him as a person, Herschel as a person. But there wasn't the intensity on the part of the Republicans as there was on the part of the Democrats. I felt it, you felt it, but we don't change anything. We have the same people in place in leadership, same people in place apparently at the RNC. Perhaps that's not changing. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm pissed tonight, frankly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really offensive.
I'm mad.
For Republican voters, for Republican donors who have put so much into having some wins, and they just see kind of failure across the board. There aren't people who are working on early voting or banking ballots. There's no clear messaging. I mean, you look at what happened since the midterm elections, where you had a Senate that basically responded to those disappointing midterm losses by doing nothing other than sabotaging their own base. What is the case for voting Republican for the Senate after these midterms? I don't think one was even attempted to be made. And yeah, nothing seems to be changing. But you didn't see a lot of enthusiasm down there. Of course, the spending was completely...
3-1.
It was just...
Look at how close it was, though. I mean, in the end, what did we say? This was winnable, Kellyanne. I know you don't want any change. You want Ronna McDaniel. I like Ronna McDaniel. Isn't this like a warning sign flashing? Or are we just going to keep doing the same thing all over again every single election?
Well,
Kevin McCarthy won the House. He won the House.
Yes, he did. And we were outspent 3-1 here.
Why?
There's no excuse in Georgia for us not to have done what Brian Kemp did. Yes, he's the incumbent governor. He's very popular. He's running against Stacey Abrams. But he turned out over his micro-targeting plan, his grassroots people, and I guess Mitch McConnell's group funded it. But they did that in the last couple of days.
He funded it?
What did 4 weeks ago.
Did Mitch McConnell appear down
there? The whining. Larry, they're so upset. Trust me. When she said, I'm pissed, their fangs are going to come out.
Speaking of fangs, maybe Herschel Walker shouldn't have been talking about vampires and werewolves and talk about the importance of maintaining Medicare and Social Security. Look, Roland, listen, let's be clear. You know, I worked on a number of campaigns, and he was a bad candidate, but he was handpicked by Trump, their guy, Fox News' guy. Well, I don't know if he's their guy anymore. They seem to be making a turn, but he just wasn't a good candidate. He couldn't articulate policy issues. He couldn't articulate anything. he was a terrible candidate. And like I said, I worked on a number of campaigns, but he's one of the worst candidates that I've seen in recent memory. And that's saying a lot considering some of the Republican candidates we've seen over the last few years. But the bottom line is, if you're not talking about important issues that are, we talk about, families that sit at the dinner table and have conversations. Obviously, we talk about issues relating to inflation, in which they talk about a lot, but then in support the Inflation Reduction Act. There are a lot of issues out there that Americans care about that Herschel Walker and the Republican Party aren't talking about. Roland, we've talked about in your show in terms of how they lost, and the recent election, they lost young folks 18 to 29. That's because they're fighting against student loan debt and all these other women's reproductive rights, all these other issues that demographic and people from racially ethnic backgrounds care about. But the Republicans ignore that. What they do is they pass more restrictive laws to make it difficult for more Black folks to vote. We saw the long lines in Georgia again. Now, what we should do is we should be at a further level focusing on how to address those kinds of issues and making sure Americans have money in their pocket, child tax credit, et cetera. But they don't want to talk about those issues. They want to talk about critical race theory, like I said, vampires and werewolves and all kinds of other, characters we see on television. But that's not what Americans want to hear about. They want to hear about important topics and what are the issues you focus on or highlight that will have a positive impact on my life.
Indeed. All right, folks. The memes have been flying all around. This is probably one of the funniest ones I've seen today. Right here, the Georgia werewolf hunter. Yes, a one-way ticket back to Texas.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
All right, folks, last week, Tennessee State University had to explain to a Senate committee about the school's lack of housing for the number of its new students. Now, they've had an explosion of new students attending the university. Now, during that hearing, Republican State Senator Todd Gartenhire literally questioned Dr. Glenda Glover, the president of Tennessee State University, about this year's record number of first-time students. Folks, he was just shocked as to how are these black students choosing to go to Tennessee State and ignoring the predominantly white institutions in Tennessee. Watch this.
When we go to the chancellor at UTC and say, why aren't you recruiting more black students to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga? And they're all going to TSU. Are we doing a disservice to all the other universities on trying to recruit African American students and minority students because y'all have made such an aggressive promise to these students to come there that they're bypassing and get a same education? I mean, what? I'm trying to figure out, in my mind, all of a sudden 2,000 students out of the blue decided, no pun intended, because that's the color of the school.
Yeah, out of the blue.
Why did they come to TSU? Was it the aggressive marketing campaign, or was it because?
It was the high standards of TSU, the quality education they're going to get at TSU. Yeah, the reputation of what the folks who've been there. We had, and the people who are there now. I have some people come because of the band. I mean, we like people to come because of programs. But I hear students who tell me, I want to go to TSU because of Rich Credit Band, who, by the way, I'm going to throw this in, who, by the way, just today got voted to be nominated for a Grammy Award, 2 Grammy Awards, our aristocratic bands. So, and that's one of the reasons. And, you said it's almost like I'm punishing them or blaming them. We're not blaming them. We're happy. I just make the point that we did do some aggressive marketing. When I say aggressive marketing, that means that we started meeting students where they are. We had more digital marketing because, students live in a digital world. Prior to COVID, they live in a digital world. COVID just pointed out to so many others that they live in a digital world. But because they're choosing TSU, I mean, that's a great thing. Let's keep it as a great thing, and not that it's taken away from UTC, because for years they took away from TSU and went to other places. So we're happy they're coming back home.
I'm curious if Gartenhire has ever asked the president of the University of Tennessee, why are all of these white kids showing up in Knoxville? What is it because of the aggressive marketing tactics that they're using in Knoxville? Is it because their football team was ranked in the top 5 before getting blown out this weekend by South Carolina? What, oh my God, what's going on here? Y'all, this dude literally was just shocked and astounded that black students are making a choice to attend Tennessee State University as opposed to the other white schools in Tennessee. Charles Galbraith Jr. is the president of the Tennessee State University National Alumni Association. He joins us right now. I mean, Charles, you heard Dr. Glover, like, I can imagine Dr. Glover going, did this fool just actually say that? And you hear her laughing, And this guy sees it as a problem, as opposed to saying, wow, this is awesome. The record enrollment at one of our state universities, our HBCU here at Tennessee State. Hey, this is a great thing. No, he literally has a problem with it.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. Good evening to you, Brother Martin, and thank you so much for having me on your show tonight. I joined thousands of alumni and just joining our esteemed President, Dr. Glover, and just saying how just outlandish the comment was. We represent alumni and students who are brilliant, students who become top sellers, students who become top leaders in the communities, and we are trailblazers in every field when it comes to music, when it comes to sports, when it comes to business, when it comes to technology. And so to question why these brilliant and bright students would come to Tennessee State University, it blows my mind. And of course, we are the blue and white in Nashville, Tennessee, Tennessee State University. And so to hear us being spoken of as out of the blue when we've been founded since 1912 and been
oh my God, they're just out of the blue. Like
amazing.
Like, boy, Negro just popped up everywhere and just started showing up in that. I mean, it was like, dude, are you serious? But see, this is also what happens when you have white political folks, and let's also be clear, okay? This state also owes Tennessee State $500 million.
Yes, sir.
For being underfunded. And so here's my issue. You know, they're questioning Tennessee State over its housing issues. How about y'all send the $500 million and we not gonna have a dorm problem?
Absolutely. The funding is what is necessary. So we can talk about things that they're throwing out there. They're throwing out the audits. They're throwing out the lack of dorm and the lack of housing. Of course, we did have the issue where we had to request further funding for hotels. That's something that is common amongst other schools that are going through that boom in their first year students as well. But what we're finding is if we had the funding, we wouldn't have these issues. We could have proper dormitories. We could have the proper resources for these students that we're expecting.
And that to me, but see, again, to me, what is insulting, there's no way this white state senator would dare question the president of the University of Tennessee in asking, oh my goodness, if you've got a record freshman class, how dare you? Why are they choosing Tennessee and not the other PWIs in Tennessee? He would never do that.
It's amazing to me because this is the largest class that we've had at Tennessee State University. First year students, 3,567 students. And what is just amazing to me is that for years they've wanted enrollment to increase. And so now we have an increased enrollment, and there are statements that they're making about that as well. So, you know, it's one of those situations where we want to continue to recruit top quality students to Tennessee State University, students who want to go to a university that can nourish them, a place where people look like them, a place where they can go and they can show their brilliance and not have to deal with some of the inequities of society, but they still are having to deal with that as a system. And so that's what we're facing now.
It's just, to me, it's just crazy that the tone that he used, he's simply incredulous. He's just like, oh, you know, oh my goodness, and why are they choosing Tennessee State over these other schools? Well, guess what? Maybe what you should be asking, Gartenhire, to those other schools, what the hell are y'all not doing? What are your recruiting practices? Have you created an environment that's comfortable and welcoming to Black students at those other universities? Have you put the resources in creating multicultural services centers, and what else are you happening here, as opposed to, oh, Tennessee State, what are y'all doing? You just got folks out of the blue. And this is no different. Look what has happened in North Carolina A&T. They got fined $2 million by the state, because, oh, you went over the cap of students, coming from out of state. So you trying to tell me that they would have fined the University of North Carolina $2 million? See, all of this is a direct result of the resurgence and the interest that people are showing in HBCUs because they are choosing to go to these places. And the problem that Tennessee State is having is what I have spoken about on this show numerous times to people, that when we start advocating, and it's hard for people to understand this here, when we start advocating, we need our kids to go to HBCUs, I keep challenging alumni, are y'all giving? Are you helping the university lobby for more resources? So it's one thing to say we need, go Tennessee State, but Tennessee State has to have the infrastructure. I keep telling people there are 107 HBCUs in the United States. They have about 230,000 students. There are 1.6 million black students who go to PWIs. If 10% of the black students choose to leave a PWI and go to a HBCU, HBCUs literally cannot handle the infusion of students because of the infrastructure. They simply don't have it. So we've had dorm issues at Florida A&M, Tennessee State, Texas Southern and Houston, other places, because when you have an explosion of growth, you got to be able to put them somewhere. And if you don't have the facilities on campus, guess what? You got to put them in hotels or apartments or other places. That's what Tennessee State is facing. And so it's a bad problem resulting from a good problem. But the lawmakers should be saying, how are we going to get the $500 million in the hands of Tennessee State for the infrastructure? That's what should be happening.
Absolutely. And the growing pains need resources. The growing pains, when we are going through this huge growth, and there's a variety of reasons for the growth. They speak of the HBCU renaissance, and we know of ambassadors such as our band and some of the head football coaches. But what is more important is that we have the star power, but we also need the funding. And so, yeah, we do need alumni to give, and we do need people to be aware of our needs so that they can fund our needs, so that we can continue to produce top students in the country, so that we can continue to put out quality students so that they can impact the world.
Absolutely. Charles Garber Jr., I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Go back to my panel here. Renita, you're a state representative. I'm sitting here going, dude, are you serious? See, this also reminds me of the white guy in Minnesota. Guys, let me know if y'all find that video. I know we did it before, where the white trustee of a university in Minnesota was questioning the university president by saying, oh, we have too much diversity. Basically, why we got all these black people at our schools when we pretty much are a white state? If anybody needs to understand why I wrote these stories are why I wrote this. They are literally like, where are these black people coming from? What the hell is going on?
Yeah, so watching that video, my blood pressure doesn't even raise because it is representative of every single committee meeting I've been in serving in the Georgia House of Representatives at the state level. So all of my committee meetings look the same way. And I bet that if you talk to that senator, he probably would not even understand what people are complaining about in his comments. What I will point out to folks who are watching your show is the professionalism of Dr. Glover, because I'm sure a lot of people probably thought, well, now why didn't she just ask him, had he lost his mind? Why didn't she just check him? And that's because the main job
that would have qualified for this mother segment. I'm sorry.
Right, exactly. It does. It absolutely qualifies, but this is not her first time being a witness in front of the committee, you can tell. And so lawmakers, their main job that they have to do, if they don't do anything else, is to figure out and vote on the state budget. And so what Dr. Glover knows is that this person, as idiotic as he may be, is the senator, and he decides the funding. And although HBCUs typically are not able to receive state scholarships, the state still does give money to HBCUs. So that's why she responded that way, trying to educate his ignorance But you can see that it's a master class in trying to hold it together so that her university does not lose funding. But it's also a very special type of trauma that Black witnesses do endure. Now, somebody else on the committee could have gotten him together. I don't know if there are Democrats on that committee. I don't know if there are Black people on that committee. As far as like other lawmakers, I would hope that they weren't just sitting there and letting all this nonsense go on, because I know that I never did. In committee, I threw down. So I hope that they did not leave Dr. Glover just hanging out there with no response to this person's ignorance.
And the thing here, I mean, look, the reality here, Congo, she couldn't go off because remember, she's Tennessee State is a state institution, so she is a public employee. And so she has to be in the good graces of this committee because at the end of the day, you're dealing with funding. But I'm sure they were in the car laughing at this fool for that kind of comment. But we're seeing this repeatedly. What we're seeing are white people not understanding why are Black people making these choices? Because frankly, Black folks have been uncomfortable in white spaces. And when and then now what you're seeing is individuals, it's choice. And again, I'm making the same comparison. I guarantee you, this man would have never questioned the president of the University of Tennessee by asking, why are all these white kids showing up in Knoxville?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it had me thinking. I felt like I was watching a episode of Dave Chappelle when Keeping It Real Goes Wrong, because I feel like Dr. Glover had two choices. And, she did the right choice, based on everything Representative Shannon was saying. And people have to really understand that people are going to our kids are going to these schools because of what you're saying. And look at all of the hate crimes that have been on the rise since Trump took office. And Black people are still the #1 targets. A lot of folks are tired of that. A lot of our kids who are going into these schools that are majority white high schools, they're tired of being the person to have to explain things for Black people every time something happens. My 3 kids are in schools that are predominantly white as well, and now 2 of them are in high school. They're considering, Howard as well as Harvard. But let's also be mindful of the fact that another reason why people our young kids are considering these schools is because the profile of so many of them have risen with people like Vice President Kamala Harris, Felicia Rashad going to Howard, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Nicole Hannah-Jones. But also remember, we got 3 very prominent Black people who are pursuing Trump to the ends of the earth. Letitia James, Howard University. I believe Fonnie Willis is Howard University. Benny Thompson, I believe, is Tougaloo. So, I mean, everywhere you turn, you are seeing people who are coming out of the HBCU experience who are doing incredible things in sports and entertainment and business and law and education. And that's also attracting people, our young people, to these schools. So I'm very happy to see it as somebody who spent, my earlier years at Morehouse College as well. You see what Deion Sanders is doing as well. So they need to be ready for this resurgence. And really, at the end of the day, I got a good laugh out of that. But for all of our kids who are considering going into these schools, keep going hard. And remember, you don't got to explain yourself to any of them. Keep doing your thing.
Well, here's what's interesting, Nola. I asked the question and again, so this is interesting. So this was 2021. Go to my iPad, Henry. Record number of vols began fall semester at UT. This is last year, y'all. University of Tennessee, Knoxville, total enrollment is on track to be the largest on record, topping 31,000 students as new and returning vols start the 2021 fall semester. A huge factor in that growth comes from a record-breaking undergraduate enrollment of approximately 25,000 students. More than 5,900 new first-year students, making up the largest first-year cohort on record and marking a 23% increase in new first-year enrollment over the past 5 years. Now, Nola, that was last year. What about this year? Oh my God! Guess what? The University of Tennessee welcomes a record-breaking number of first-year students. Not the 5,900 last year, but 6,785 new students. Oh my goodness. Look at this quote. I am so proud of all our volunteers and the work they did to get here. Whether they are a new student or returning student, UT Chancellor Donde Plowman said in a news release, "We believe in them and are invested in their success. UT is a university on the rise, and we're seeing that people all over the country want to be part of what's happening here on Rocky Top." Nola, I can guarantee you, Chancellor Plowman was not questioned by saying, "Where are these people coming out of the blue coming to Knoxville?"
So my ears heard something different listening to that. As you know, I went to a PWI for undergrad. I grew up on a HBCU campus. I grew up in an HBCU environment in New Orleans. My daddy worked at Xavier. Everybody and their mama thought I was going to Xavier, but it didn't happen. So I have 2 points on this. So while I was also an undergrad at UCLA, I always worked in an administrative role. So what I heard in that question is, you are messing with our state-funded dollars when it comes to DEIA, because I don't know Tennessee state law when it comes to higher education, but some of these schools get paid for these Black and brown bodies on campus. So I'm wondering how much of his question had to do with you're interrupting, with our state funding here versus a genuine curiosity. I could be completely wrong, but that's what I heard in that question. And I also, thought, Dr. Glover, she handled it very well. But honey, that chuckle at the beginning had me chuckling, because she was like, okay, you tried it today. You tried it today. I'm gonna keep it cute though. You tried it today. And then, my second thing that I want to say about these resurgence of going to HBCUs, which I'm so happy to see, and I'm happy that we're talking about infrastructure. But, another point is safety. Just today, it's not necessarily related to Black students, but just today, Georgetown sent out an email about how there was a swastika found near campus. And I've been on college campuses my entire life. And, yes, HBCUs, there are a lot of people representing. It looks really lit to be there. The bands are awesome. The community is awesome. But this issue of safety and wanting to be around people that look like you, that come from similar backgrounds than you. I can tell you in my PhD program, there was a litany of trauma. There was even a situation where this one woman was convinced that Black people smelled. She even had the nerve to give me soap for my birthday, but I'm not gonna go there. What I'm saying is, it's the safety element too.
That would have been an ass whooping. Oh, that would have been that hashtag team whip that ass would have showed up.
I did not know that's why she gave it to me until a year later. I said, she did what? Because I know what I smell like, honey. Trust me. Anyway, so the safety component is very important to this too. And to my sister, is water. I'm drinking water, ain't nothing in this cup. Stop. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay.
What?
We know you from New Orleans. Anyway, I told y'all, remember that we showed y'all the video of the white trustee where he was literally questioning what's up with all these Black people? I mean, I'm gonna play this, but y'all thought I was joking. Y'all go ahead and play the video. Go ahead.
Is it possible that at Morris we've become too diverse? Is it possible, all from a marketing standpoint? For instance, Chancellor, I've received a couple letters, 2 actually, from friends whose children are not going to go to Morris because it is too diverse, let's say a campus. They just didn't feel comfortable there. Is that at all possible in the specific of Morris, that we become too diverse for a student to attend?
So basically, you got a couple of letters from some white racists who their white kids did not feel comfortable going to a campus that had a lot of Black people. That's when you say they didn't feel comfortable because it's too diverse. What in the hell is too diverse? Ain't like the university was 75%, 50% Black. But I told y'all, white fear, how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. This example and the example in Tennessee.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
I've said this before. There are 107 HBCUs in the United States. There are 230,000 students that go to those HBCUs. 20% of those students are non-black. So that means about 195 or so thousand of the students at HBCUs are black students. There are 1.6 million black students that attend PWIs in the United States. Okay, 1.6 million versus 230,000 total students out of 107. Now, when I listen to folk who are angry and upset with Deion Sanders, I thought about one of my staffers who came to me, and she was scared to tell me that she was taking a new job. And she told me she was leaving, and I said, well, why were you scared? She said, I thought you would be upset. I said, I've never been upset when somebody left. I said, and the reason I've never been upset when somebody left, because I always know no matter who you are, you can be replaced. I said, the only person that cannot be replaced is me, because I own it. Now, let me explain that. I don't get upset when somebody leaves. I've never gotten upset when the pastor left a church. I've never gotten upset when the editor of a paper or a place left. I've never done that, because the reality is, what I understand is, no institution dies or survives based upon one person. Now, the issue is not an institution dies when a person leaves. an institution dies when the new person comes in and does not handle their business. Now, so for folk, again, who need to understand this, okay, what we need to understand is this here. It's a whole bunch of black people right now commenting about Deion Sanders leaving an HBCU and not now one of them work for a black-owned company. It's a lot of people who are commenting about Deion Sanders leaving who don't live in black neighborhoods. It's a lot of people right now who are commenting about Deion Sanders being a sellout when it comes to leaving Jackson State, and they make no affirmative decision to actually buy black. Now, see, it's real easy to focus on Deion, but not look at yourself and what you were doing. And so that's what gets me when people are upset. Now, what folks also have to understand is everybody ain't built the same. I understand. When I was at CNN, they asked me to leave the Tom Jordan Morning Show, to leave TV One, and all my books and my speeches, and I said no. I said, I'm not leaving my black stuff. Y'all haven't given me a daily show. You haven't given me the higher salary, so I'm not going to leave my stuff on a possible promise. I had a lunch with John Klein. John's a great guy. It was in 2009. He was the president of CNN US. He asked me, when are you going to get done with all this other stuff, TV One and Tom Jordan? And I said, well, you gonna give me a 5-day-a-week show? There was no response. I said, well, I ain't leaving. Well, the next year, John Klein gets fired at CNN. I don't leave CNN until 2013. When I left CNN, I still had TV One, Tom Jordan, and all my other stuff. And so everybody out here is not committed specifically to working in black institutions. And that's fine. There are black people right now who are in media, who work at ABC and NBC and CBS, and they want to work in mainstream media. They are not committed to working in black-owned media. I made a conscious decision to do so. Now, Deborah, you look at Robin Roberts. She's making $20 million at Good Morning America. When you look at Al Roker, when you look at so many other different people, they're making multiple millions, and that's fine. I made a different decision in terms of what I wanted they would do with my life. And so understand that's the case. And so, Renita, you're absolutely right in terms of what Deion said and what he was saying. But also, it's also incumbent upon us in black institutions to also make decisions as to how we lead them. So let me give y'all an example. I didn't leave the Chicago Defender because CNN called me. I left Chicago Defender because the folks who own the Defender wanted the paper to be a small community paper. That wasn't my vision. I was trying to make the Chicago Defender into the nation's leading black media organization. They didn't want that. I said, I got to go. Now, but understand, for 20 years, the Chicago Defender lost money. It was a bad paper. It was called the Chicago Offender. I get there, we lose money my first year, make a profit my second year, make a profit my third year. Now, when I leave, the paper goes down after I leave. That ain't my fault. That's the folk who still own it and run it. And so, the challenge right now for Jackson State or for every SWAC school and for every HBCU is not to decry Deion. What you should be now saying is, who's going to be our new leader? What's the plan of action? And so I never thought Deion was going to stay at Jackson State 3 or 4 or 5 years. The fact that he stayed 3 years is also surprising. And so the fact of the matter is, what we've got to learn to do in black institutions is to, on McCongo's point, stop sitting here looking for the savior, but also let's create multiple people who understand what we're doing and also what we're trying to build. Now, let me make this point as well. And so I made a point about giving. And so a lot of people came at me, well, how you trying to equate, black giving, and the national average for universities with giving is about 7%. And so these schools are doing this, and Jackson State's giving, according to the president of the Alumni Association, I interviewed Saturday, is at 13%. Then had a brother who hit me up and he said, well, you know, black students have a higher student debt ratio to white students, so therefore we can't afford to give. Okay, so let me walk through that. So I'm confused right now. So we say on one hand that HBCUs have been historically underfunded. Then we say we don't get the corporate support. So we don't get the corporate support, we don't get the state support, because again, for state HBCUs, but yeah, your private HBCUs. So when I said that we should be, if you're going to be upset with 87% of Jackson State alumni that don't give. Be upset with 95% of Florida A&M alumni that don't give. And go down the line. Claflin has the highest giving of any HBCU, and it's around 50+%. Then it's Spelman and the others. Morehouse's number, very low. Howard University's number is under 15. Now, when I criticize the giving rates, again, folk came back at me, Nicole Hannah-Jones and others, well, here's the average. I don't want to hear a damn thing about the average. Because when I say giving, I'm talking about a penny or higher. So when I got hit with, well, you should not equate the two, actually, I should. How can we, as black folks, be angry at Dion by saying he turned his back on an HBCU by going to a PWI, when we as black folks on a daily basis literally drive right past black businesses and give our money to white businesses? See, I'm trying to get y'all to think much bigger and broader. You cannot convince me that there's no, I don't care if you are an HBCU graduate, you cannot send $1 to your school. Now look, I understand student debt ratio. I understand all of that. What I am saying is, when I talk to presidents and I talk to alumni presidents, and understand, we discussed this with a sister who works in the Jackson State administration. When they go to foundations, the first question they ask is, what's the giving of your alumni? That's the first question, because they then say, if your alumni can't give, then how are you asking us to support you as well? And see, some of y'all watching right now going, see, here you go, you trying to deflect. No, I'm not. I'm trying to broaden this conversation, and that is this here. And this, of course, somebody else said, well, even if every alumni gave this, it still would not make up. I ain't saying make up. What I'm talking about is commitment. You cannot ask Dion to make a commitment that you don't make. You can't. Julianne Malveaux is sitting on here right now. She can tell you how often she would call me. When I was at WVON radio, Roland, we got a group of girls, 4 or 5. They not coming back to school. I got to raise $30,000 to keep these girls in school. Can you mention it on the radio? Can you give out the website? Julianne, ain't no problem. We can do that. And so what I'm trying to say, black people, is we can't sit here and say, well, we haven't got funding from the state, we're not getting the money from corporate America, but then we don't give. We can't make the excuses, go, well, you know, I ain't got it. When every single one of us spends money on what we want to spend money on. And all I'm saying is, if you are an HBCU graduate, send something back. You can't send 1,000. You can't send 500. You can't send 100. You can't send 50. Okay, fine. Commit, I'm going to send my school $1 a month. That's $12 a year. Y'all, Numbers don't lie. If 1,000 graduates send $12 a year, that's more money than they gave last year. So what I'm trying to get us to understand is we've got to stop being so emotional because of what Dion did. And what we should be saying again, and see, and let me just keep going here. We should be saying, well, and when I'm buying school gear, am I buying school gear from folks who have paid a licensing fee, or am I buying bootleg? Do I spend more money coming back for homecoming on airfare, car rental, food, liquor, and hotel than I do to the school? See, again, you can be mad at Dion all day. I'm asking for a collective commitment. And if y'all think, oh, I'm just sitting here talking, I keep telling y'all, go listen to Dr. King's speech, April 3rd, 1968, at Mason Temple, when he said black people individually are poor, yet collectively we represent one of the wealthiest economies in the world. And so if we're going to be about that, then what I desire for us is to have a fervor for black institutions and not just talk about it. Now, if you one of the folks and you stepping up and doing what's right, good. But what I'm telling you is, it's a lot of us selling wolf tickets. It's a lot of us talking and not doing. It's a lot of us not giving. It's a lot of us not supporting. And I know, I can see some of y'all right now, and I can see some, and see, and here's what's interesting. Because I've already some of y'all comments, yeah, see, you talking, but you didn't go to an HBCU. My high school was right across the street from one, and they never recruited me, even though I was the #1 communication student at my high school. But I can bet you, if I was a #1 football player, or the #1 basketball player, they would have come across the street. Prairie View was down the street, 50 minutes. They will often visit Jack Yates, never recruited me. So I made a decision because my brother was there at A&M. My parents, I thought about it. I don't think my parents, in my brother's 4 years, my 4 years, my sister's 4 years, I don't think my parents collectively sent the three of us combined $1,000. I had 2 sisters at home. So I went to A&M for the academic scholarship. I followed the money. So don't come at me saying, well, why didn't I go? Easy. I followed the money. But what's interesting is there are people who go to HBCUs who want to say, well, you can't say nothing, but then you don't mind my check. When Robert Smith paid off the graduation debt at Morehouse, Robert didn't go to no HBCU. He went to Cornell. See, so don't come at me with that because you don't mind that PWI graduate money when it comes in. What is required right now are for black folks to walk the walk about supporting black institutions. So when you're watching Love and Hip Hop and giving them your eyeballs, that ain't black-owned media. When you are supporting, when you're looking at Complex, that's owned by BuzzFeed. That's not black-owned media. BET is owned by Viacom CBS. And so when I hear people get righteous and indignant about Dion, I got to ask you, what are you doing every day of your life to support what is black-owned? And the fact of the matter is, if you ain't got no black lawyer or a black dentist or a black doctor or a black accountant or black cleaners, if you're not frequently supporting black restaurants, if you're not going to, is it a black-owned gas station, then all you doing is sitting on social media demanding something of him that you ain't doing yourself. And And if you want to talk about black institutions and voting, if you ain't sending no check to Black Voters Matter or New Georgia Project or Georgia Stand Up or on and on, then what you're doing, again, is complaining and hoping somebody else do something that you can't do. So Deion goes to Colorado. Deion, good luck. Whoever's the next head coach at Jackson State, good luck. I'll be at Jackson State's campus giving the commencement speech on Friday. And I'm telling y'all right now, I'm going to say the same thing to the graduates there. If you love Jackson State, if you love Mississippi Valley State and Alabama A&M and Alabama State and Texas Southern and Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M and Morgan and Howard and Morehouse and Spelman and Paul Quinn and Wiley and on and on and on, if you actually love it, show it with your money.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
A group of African Americans released a letter today blasting MSNBC's decision to part ways with Tiffany Cross. This letter was, I was one of the folks who actually signed the letter as well, was released today publicly, and I want to read it for you. All right, folks, pull it up, please. The letter states, Dear Miss Jones, this is addressed to Rashida Jones, African-American who is the president of MSNBC, the first African-American to be president of a news network. We write to you on behalf of the Cross Connection viewing audience, which is made up of more than 35% of Black Americans and other people of color who tune in every weekend. Throughout her more than 20 years in media, Tiffany Cross has been a consistent light of truth. Her integrity is a hallmark of her career on which her steadfast audience has come to rely. Ms. Cross is a trusted communicator, friend, and validator to marginalized communities who too often find their voices and valuable perspectives missing from mainstream media. Nowhere was this more true than on her MSNBC show, The Cross Connection. Her authentic audience connection and intentional truth-telling made it MSNBC's highest-rated weekend show, becoming appointment viewing for a committed audience that made the show's topics and host trend weekly. That is why we are deeply disappointed in the abrupt cancellation of The Cross Connection and the unexpected ouster of its host, just 4 days before a critical midterm election. This decision was announced just 2 weeks after a targeted, racist, and misogynistic strike against both Ms. Cross's reporting and character from a known racist and anti-Semite, Fox News host Tucker Carlson. His intentional misrepresentation of her platform amounted to no less than a direct attack and should have engendered immediate defense and support of Ms. Cross by her parent network. Instead, it appears that NBC Universal has allowed Fox News to dictate its hiring and unwarranted firing decisions. We cannot afford to be bullied by those who willingly and wantonly drag this country backwards. Given the undeniable rise of fascism and persistent threats to democracy we face in the current moment, NBC should be an unrelenting force for truth and a safe harbor for voices like Ms. Cross, as well as those with whom she shared her broad and popular platform. While other networks give voice to election deniers, Ms. Cross featured voting rights champions. Where other shows spread disinformation, The Cross Connection spotlighted justice. Where other outlets catered to the country's worst instincts, Ms. Cross elevated the discourse and taught audiences how to protect democracy. There's a persistent theme in the denigrating of Black women's value and the silencing of Black women's voices when they speak uncomfortable but necessary truths about the state of our society. This season is too grave a moment in American history to silence the voices of Black women who, time and again, saved America from itself. Tiffany Cross has long been one of those Black women, and her voice is needed now more than ever. We believe you are clear about the dangers we are collectively facing and how reminiscent it is of this nation's dark past. We would like to meet with you before Friday, November 11th, 2022, to discuss a path forward that is restorative to the reputation and dignity of Ms. Cross. It was signed by Melody Campbell, Cliff Albright, Black Voters Matter Fund, Latasha Brown, Alicia Garza, Rashad Robinson, Derek Johnson of the NAACP, Lanita Baker, National Bar Association, LaFonza Butler, Emily's List, Maurice Mitchell, Working Families Party, Tamika Mallory, Until Freedom, David Johns, the National Black Justice Coalition. It was by myself, Angela Rye, Impact Strategies, Jamel Hill, Unbothered Network, Kerry Champion, Reverend Mark Thompson, Make It Plain, Bishop William Barber III, the Poor People's Campaign, Repairs of the Breach, Ben Crump, Reverend Dr. Iva Carruthers, Reverend Dr. Liz Theo Harris of the Poor People's Camp. First of all, Carruthers with the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference, Reverend Liz Theo Harris, Cairo Center and the Poor People's Campaign, Savante Myrick, People for the American Way, Barbara Arnwine, Transformative Justice Coalition, Hillary Holly, Care in Action. Also, Ajeen Poo, National Domestic Workers Alliance, Kimberly Carter, Rep. GA Institute, Taracia Brown Wilkinson, Our Women in Politics, Jerry Gonzalez, Rebecca Carroll, Cindy Leave, Rebecca Carroll, Cindy Leave, Dorian Warren, Tynesha McHarris, Tiffany Flowers, Patrick Gaspard, Tarana Burke, Janice Mathis, as well. Those are the folks who, and Cleola Brown, Mignon Moore, Bishop Leah Daltrey, and Damon Hewitt with the Lawrence Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. The reality is this here, folks. Also, Keith Olbermann ripped Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, Lawrence O'Donnell for their silence after Tiffany was let go. Now, her contract is up in a month. They said it was her comments. Well, no, they haven't actually given an official reason. It's the sources that we've actually heard from that have been talking. MSNBC gave no statement. But what they did do is, after the letter was dropped, they did release a statement. Lori Ann Asio, Vice President of Communications for NBC News and MSNBC, gave this statement to the Griot that business decisions like this happen all the time. Quote, we received a letter signed by several organizations. We are proud of our long history celebrating diversity on and off air at MSNBC and throughout the news group. This is an ongoing effort and will continue to elevate diverse perspectives and voices during this election season and beyond. And they're going to have a rotation of hosts on the Cross Connection until they finalize their programming. And let me just tell you what's probably going to end up happening. And so go ahead and write it down. MSNBC is paying Jen Psaki a whole bunch of money to come host a show there at MSNBC. Now remember, they got rid of Amin's show and Zerlina Maxwell's show on the Peacock channel, okay? Because they're saving money. They're giving Rachel Maddow $30 million to host a show once a week, all right? To keep it from going to Sirius XM or CNN or somewhere else. So here's what's going to happen. They're going to probably move Jen Psaki into Jonathan Capehart's slot on Sunday morning. They're probably going to move Jonathan Capehart into Tiffany's slot on Saturday. Watch it happen, write it down, it's gonna happen. That's what you're actually dealing with there. But really what you're dealing with here, and this is what I keep telling y'all about mainstream media. I spent 6 years at CNN. And when people come up to me like, man, I wish you go back to mainstream media, I said, let me explain something to you. The only person who can fire Roland Martin is God. That's the hierarchy here. I'm the CEO, I'm the owner. God is the only person above me. When you work in that environment, ratings don't matter. They will fire you if they want to. They will choose not to resign you if they choose to. And that's what happened here. And so I said this, and I tweeted this. Rashida Jones, who I know, the president, must speak to this issue why Tiffany Cross was not given a new contract and continued hosting her show. Her boss, Cesar Conde, over NBC, must speak to this. His boss, Jeff Shell, who's over all of NBC Universal, must speak to this. They all must speak to it. And black folks, this is real simple. You got to make a decision. Or you're going to keep watching. What do you hear when Jeff Carr in our promotion, when he says, you need to bring your eyeballs home to Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network? The reality is this here. We are the most loyal audience they have. Black folks represent, we watch MSNBC more than anybody else. So we should be saying, this how y'all gonna do a truth teller? And here's the other question. You hired Tiffany Cross for her opinion. So you getting rid of her because of her opinion? Oh, you didn't realize she was a truth teller when she was trying out? So you gave her a show? Explain that. Explain why would you hire somebody to be an opinion host, but then, well, we don't like it. And keep in mind, I've already heard people say, well, you know, she made the comment on Charlamagne's show about Florida and used the word dick. Mark Halperin called Obama that on Morning Joe and got suspended. He was back on the air. The only reason he got fired was because of his Me Too problems. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark Halperin was a white guy who was a favorite of Joe and Mika. Mm-hmm. Tiffany Cross was never a favorite of Joe and Mika. You never saw her on that show, did you? Which is sort of weird because if you had a high-rated show on the weekends, why wouldn't you have them on the morning show? That's the question. And also, you got to be asking the question, why did the Zerlina Maxwell show get canceled? Was it because of ratings? Did they ever tell her it was because of ratings? Those are some questions that should be answered. And let's see if MSNBC schedules that meeting. I'll let my panel weigh in. Juliana, you first, about the decision by MSNBC to part ways with Tiffany Cross.
Well, they're absolutely wrong. Tiffany is a truth teller. And I didn't find her comments offensive at all. I found them actually quite amusing. One time she said something, I said, shoot, I wish I had said that. She's a smart sister who was having a good show. But, Black women take the brunt of so much. And the Mark Halperin example is a great one, but there are many other examples of white boys who can get away with just about anything, except for in this Me Too era, putting their hands on a woman, but they can get away with almost anything else. They can say anything. And it's only when Black women step out there, and more so Black women than Black men, we step out there, suddenly we're under a microscope. As you said, she was hired for her opinion, and she's worked very hard over the course of her career to get to where she is. I'm sure she'll shine somewhere else, but MSNBC needs to be shamed. And Roland, maybe we should start talking about boycott. Maybe that's what we should be doing.
The reason I said this beforehand, the reason you did not hear me say that word is because I follow the model of Operation Breadbasket. Boycott was the last thing that they did because they had to do education up front. One of the biggest mistakes that we make is that we throw boycott out first. My deal is, let's educate our people, enlighten our people. They met with them, and then if the answer wasn't satisfactory, they got back, then they went to the next step. And so the worst thing in the world, that's why you will rarely ever hear me say it. I don't throw that out there because if we have not prime positioned our people here to understand what the issue is, then a boycott actually fails. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. Renita.
Well, I hope that my comments will help with some of that education because we need to quickly get to the part where we boycott. Here's what I've always noticed about MSNBC. This is a left-leaning network, yet most of the people that they have hosting the various shows are not Black people who are the base of the Democratic Party. They've got Joe and Mika with a 2-hour show every day.
No, baby. After that got bumped to 4 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, so
they were 3 hours. Now they 4.
Okay, but you still got Joe and Mika, a Republican. He says he's left the party, but we also remember when he got caught helping Trump to get elected. And then you got Nicole Wallace, who has a 2-hour show. Meanwhile, you've got brilliant people on MSNBC who've never been given an entire show, like Jason Johnson. And so MSNBC, they do things that you would never see Fox do, which is, number one, elevate what is supposed to be the opposite of what the network is about. You never see Fox bringing up a whole bunch of Democrats to have 2- and 3-hour shows. And they don't really, most of the hosts do not represent the people who actually vote for Democrats. This is a problem that MSNBC should be taken seriously because many people, especially generation, the millennials and generation Z, I believe it is, they've done a lot of cord cutting. Most people don't even pay for cable anymore. Yes, you can watch MSNBC on the apps, but the point is mainstream media has taken a hit over the years, and it continues to take a hit because people can look at things that resonate with them more, like Roland Martin. They can look at things online that resonate with them more. And so they really can't afford to be not catering to the people who are actually keeping their eyeballs on MSNBC.
Jason?
Well, the one thing I'll say about Jen Psaki is whatever it is, I've seen her on television when she's not at the podium and answering questions, when she's literally in a box the way we are right now, and whatever it is, she doesn't have it. So if she's gonna host a show, that show's gonna bomb. I'll put it right now. I'll put money on it. It's not gonna work. She just doesn't have the charisma in that kind of a setting. So she's not the one to host a show. I think there are other people that may take that spot. But one of the things we have to know about MSNBC is that they've always ghettoized their Black talent onto weekends. It just so happened that they put Joy Reid on into prime time. But for how long was she basically their best talent and she was put onto weekends? They had Reverend Al on the weekends. They put all of the Black people on the weekends.
Actually, no, I got to correct you. Remember, Reverend Sharpton had a daily show, 6 p.m. Joy had an afternoon show. Her afternoon show with Alex Wagner got canceled. Then when they had the tiff with Melissa Harris Perry, so Joy had a weekend show. She went to a daily show in the afternoon, and then she went from the daily show in the afternoon back to the weekends, and then from the weekends to prime time. Sharpton had a daily 6 p.m. show that got canceled. Then he got moved to the weekends. And then Tamron Hall had a morning show. Craig Melvin had a show that was a midday show. She, of course, left. Craig got promoted on the Today Show, and so now the only person, only African American you see in the daily rotation is Joy's show at 7 p.m. Go ahead.
Okay, so I stand corrected. I remember when I would watch, it seemed like I saw Melissa Harris Perry, Reverend Sharpton, and Joy would be on weekends. But again, I don't watch a ton of MSNBC, and I know that there are a lot of people out there who do. I really hope that they fix this situation. I had high hopes for the fact that they had an African American who was their president, and I hope it works out for Tiffany Cross, because I actually enjoyed her show. I watched her show where you were on a few times, and
Whose show? Whose show?
Tiffany Cross.
Right, yeah. I thought you said Joy. I've never ever done Joy Reid's show. I've been on Tiffany's show, but I've never ever been on Joy and Reid's show. Her weekend show, her weekend show, or her daily show.
Right.
And I've done Sharpton show one time. But go ahead.
Yeah. I've never done any of those shows. I was on Craig Melvin one time, but I have seen you on Tiffany's show, and the fact that she actually had African Americans and African American men, and talking about the issue of African American men voting, and particularly in Georgia, I thought was really important. It followed my article in Newsweek, so I was really excited about that, and seeing you on that panel and talking about that issue. I thought she did a lot of really good content, and I hope that she bounces back. I don't know where she's going to bounce back. There's really, it seems like, in terms of liberal networks right now, it's only MSNBC in terms of the major networks.
Yep.
But I hope she starts something on her own the way you did, and gains the traction and gets the eyeballs that she deserves, if people bring their eyeballs home to her whenever she starts her thing.
Well, again, the thing that I want people to understand is that, and I really hope people, let me be clear, I support folks who work in mainstream media. I've been a 3-time board member of the National Association of Black Journalists. We fought for those jobs. This is also why we have to have independent Black-owned media to be able to cover the issues that we care about, where we're not being beholden to somebody else who are making those decisions. That's why I started the Black Star Network. That's why we have 5 shows. That's why we have 3 shows in development. This is why when I talk about you supporting us with your resources, it matters. Because here's the deal. You right now, if you got cable, you are sending, let me be just real clear with y'all. Because see, again, folk don't even understand this, Julian, Renita, and Jason. A lot of y'all who have got cable news right now, you are spending more money per month on Fox News than you are on this show. The cable fees that Fox News gets is what funds them, along with advertising. So if you have cable, you're actually funding Fox News. You're funding Newsmax. You were funding on American News when it was on AT&T and Verizon, Fios. You might want to understand the business of the business. Fox News is the most profitable cable news network. And they get paid a monthly fee every cable bill you're paying. If you have cable, you are sending money to Fox News every single month. Just so you understand that. And the same with MSNBC. And the same with CNN. So you literally are funding these networks. And so when we're complaining about what they do, we're funding them. Just so you're aware.
Bye.